Over time, Mike discovered that no one in the world suffers from paranoia as much as a writer who doubts himself all the time. But this time, he didn't feel any ridicule or contempt for the director of the hotel. "Thank you." And he looked at the red light in the recording device. He was always embarrassed that it was an eye watching the other side all the time, waiting for it to write. But now he felt like this eye was watching him. "No, this is serious talk, by the way. I intend to read more, but because I liked her book. I was surprised that she found me laughing at your adventure of not being a writer in Gatsby Castle. I was surprised that her book was so beautiful and calm. At first I thought it was a violent, bloody commercial book." Mike was ready to comment, which would come later. "What about a girl like you in a place like this now? But the truth is, books are scary too. If I hadn't read a little bit of them, I probably wouldn't have cared to meet you like I did today. When I saw you bringing the lawyer and he took his bag, I understood that there was nothing I could do to make you remove the idea of the cursed room from your mind. But when I started reading the books," Mike reached out and turned off the recorder. The red light was really starting to get on his nerves. "Do you want to know what made me reach the hall and write about these things? Is that what you were doing when you read the books? I think you write about these things to make money. And I never said you were in the hall, dear. It's strange that you're expecting me to write about this." Mike started to feel the heat on his face. The interview didn't go as he'd expected. He'd never turned off a recorder like this before in the middle of a conversation. But the director was unexpected. He was in control of the flow of the conversation. What scared me was that I discovered that I was reading to a person who was obviously literate and talented, and didn't believe a single thing he wrote about. This wasn't true at all. Mike wrote at least 2 stories that he was convinced were real, and published several of them. At the beginning of his stay in New York, and during his first 18 months, he wrote a lot about things he believed to be real. But did he really believe that Eugene Rales, with his head cut off, was really walking around in an abandoned farm in Kansas under the moonlight? No. He spent the night in the farm. The only scary thing he saw was the oven. He spent a very hot summer night in a castle in Transylvania. The Wallachian flask was supposed to still be there, but the only blood stain he saw that night was the spooky mouse. The night he spent at the grave of the serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer was like seeing a man who was out at 2 a.m. holding a knife. But the nightmare's friends laughed, and the plot was revealed. And so the disguise wasn't perfect. Mike knew the difference between a real ghost and a teenager holding a rubber knife, but he wasn't ready to share his thoughts with Olin. But he remembered that he had turned off the recording device, and since the interview was no longer recorded, he could have said anything. Other than that, he was starting to like Olin's mentality, and when you like someone, you're ready to tell them the whole truth. "No, I don't believe in ghosts, giant monsters, and the like. And thank God these things don't exist, because there wouldn't be anything to protect us from them if they were real. But I decided from the start to keep my mind open, and not to be afraid. And I know I never won the Pulitzer Prize because I wrote about the ghost that appeared in Mount Hope's grave. But if I had met that ghost, I would have written about it with all honesty." Olin said something very low, one word that Mike couldn't distinguish. "Sorry, I didn't hear what you said. I was saying no." Mike refutes. Olin definitely thinks he's a liar. "When it comes to this point, it's best to end the discussion. Mr. Olin, can we continue this discussion another time? I'd rather leave the room now if you don't mind. Who knows, maybe when I leave and enter the room, I'll see a ghost standing behind me in the mirror while I brush my teeth." And Mike started to get up from his chair. Olin raised his hand to stop him. "I'm not accusing you of lying, my dear, but you don't believe. And ghosts rarely appear until they are not believed to exist. It could be that Eugene Rilspe was walking in front of you all the time, and you were spending the night in his farm, but you didn't see him." Mike stopped and raised his hand to remove the bag. "Okay, if that's the case, there's no reason for us to leave room 1408, right?" "No, there's a reason to leave. You have to leave. There are no ghosts in room 1408. But there's something else other than ghosts. I myself felt this thing. Not believing in ghosts can protect you from seeing them if you're staying in an abandoned house or an old castle. But not believing in ghosts is what will make you more susceptible to danger in room 1408. Please, Mr. Insler, please don't. I waited for you today to ask you, no, to beg you not to leave this room. Mike, this person who wrote these beautiful books about the life of ghosts doesn't deserve to be there. Mike heard the director's words, but he didn't hear them at the same time. He was angry with himself. And you turned off the recording device? You feel embarrassed until you turn off the recording device, and then he talks to you like this about the room and you don't record a word. Okay, it doesn't matter. Take his words from the memo in the article. If he wants to raise a case on me after that, he's free to do so. He couldn't wait to leave the room. Not only because he wanted to get rid of this stupid task of spending a boring night in the room, but also because he wanted to remember what the director said before he forgot. Have a drink, Mr. Insler. No, please. The director put his hand on his pocket and pulled out a key hanging on a long bronze medal. The bronze looked old, rusty, and pale. The number was 1408. Please give me just 10 minutes of your time. We'll have a drink together. Then you can take the key. I was almost ready to do anything to change your mind. But that's it. I understand very well now that this is a matter of course. You still use real keys in this hotel? I swear it's a nice touch. Actually, no. All the rooms in the hotel have been open since 1979, the year I was the manager. 1408 is the only room that is still open with a key. There was no need to change the lock or change the door. The room was always empty. The last time the manager came in was in 1978. You're joking. Mike sat down and took out the recording device and turned it on again and said, according to the manager, Mr. Olin, room 1408 was not occupied by anyone during the last 20 years. We didn't try to install a modern lock on the door of the room because we knew it wouldn't work. The digital clocks don't work in the room. Sometimes the time goes by in the back. Digital clocks don't work in this room. Sometimes the clock goes backwards and sometimes it stops completely. The important thing is that you won't be able to know the time with a digital clock in this room. Same thing for calculators or mobile phones. And if you use a beeper, Mr. Enslin, I also advise you to turn it off before entering the room. Because once you enter, it will start to beep for no reason, and it will stop for a moment, and then continue. And even if you turn off the device, unfortunately, it doesn't guarantee anything. It can start by itself again. The only effective treatment is to remove the battery and stretch your hand and turn off the device. In fact, Mr. Enslin, the only effective treatment is to not enter this room at all. No, I can't, and stretch my hand and remove the recording device again. The only thing I can do is to accept the drink you offered me a while ago. And while the manager was pouring the drink in front of a small bar under an oil painting on the wall, Mike asked, you say that this room was not inhabited since 1978. How did you know that the electronics are damaged in this room? I didn't say that no one entered the room at all since 1978. I mean at least once a month. One of the housekeeping staff has to enter the room to give it a quick cleaning. I mean, Mike had been working on his new book for 4 months, 10 rooms, hotels, and a resident's quick cleaning of an unoccupied room, like opening the windows to get fresh air, dust removal, and so on. Maybe the only thing that doesn't happen in this quick cleaning is changing the shelves. And he asked himself if he should have brought his shelves or a sleeping bag. Olin had just returned from the bar, and it seemed like he was reading Mike's thoughts. By the way, we changed the shelves today. Mr. Enslin, enough about Mr. Enslin. You can call me Mike. No, please don't call me that. That I won't be comfortable with that. Here you go, to your health and to your health. No. Mr. Enslin, today, to your health alone. You need this today more than anyone else. Okay. To my health, you know. Mr. Olin, you're in the middle of a horror film. The wise man who appears in the film to warn his heroes in the dark about the entrance of the castle of the dead. Luckily for me, I didn't take this role that often. I haven't yet entered the rules of the internet that talk about the places of residence or the strange phenomena, and this will change when I finish my book. This is what Mike thought about while taking a sip from his glass. Even the tourist tours that go around the places of residence in New York have no knowledge about this room. We tried as much as we could to keep this secret well. Although the date is written and available to any accurate researcher, Mike allowed himself a smile. Veronica, the worker, changed the shelves. I entered the room with her myself. Veronica and her sister have been working here since 1971 or 1972, approximately one of the oldest workers in the hotel. I'm the oldest, personally, in 6 years, and she was a maid until she became the head of the housekeeping. I think this is the first time she has changed the shelves by herself in 6 years. Approximately, You should be proud of yourself, Mr. Enslam. It's like someone from the royal family changing the shelves by himself. Veronica and her sister, the worker, who died in 1992, were changing the shelves to clean this room. Maybe the link between the two sisters made them... What's the word? Yes, it's like they have a ban against the room, 1408, a ban that is enforced at a certain time. They can only give it a quick clean. Please don't tell me her sister died of a terrible death because of the room. No, not at all. Her sister quit her job in 1988 for health reasons, even though you didn't believe that the room has a connection to her physical and psychological deterioration. We have reached a good stage of understanding, Mr. Olin, and I'm sorry. I'm afraid to ruin this understanding. If I say I think all this is nonsense, you are very stubborn, even though you are a researcher in the field of paper. The readers have the right to doubt everything. I think I could have left the room 1408 as it is locked. It never opens. The light is off, and the curtain is back so the sun doesn't change the color of everything in the room. But I couldn't bear the idea of the air in the room, as if it was an abandoned storage. I couldn't bear the idea of the dust layers that would accumulate on each floor. In my opinion, I was more confused than necessary, wasn't I?